Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spin Cycle podcast talking to the personalities, the groups, and the brands that make London and the UK an incredible place to be a cyclist. Today, we've got maybe a fan favourite, and certainly my favourite place to go for coffee. It's Giro Cycles, and it's Jordan. Jordan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
So, hopefully people are pretty excited about this one. As we said before the podcast started to Jordan, this is most people or everybody's kind of favourite place to go. And we'll run the podcast like we usually do. Obviously, we'll do section 1, getting to know Jordan, maybe how he got into cycling. Section 2, the origin of Giro. Just said, or back in October, celebrated 10 years open, which is an incredible feat. And then the third part will do, the important stuff, white bib shorts. Do people actually enjoy cycling on cobblestones, etc., etc.? So, Jordan, maybe to start us off, you can tell us who you are and maybe how you got into cycling, really.
So how did I get into cycling? So I probably got into road cycling about 15 years ago, like as in quite seriously. But that kind of really started with, I used to mountain bike quite a lot. And after I finished university, I was basically commuting to work on my mountain bike. And one of the guys I was living with at the time had this really old road bike called a Barracuda. Oh. It was silver and blue. And I said to him, just off the off, I said, could I borrow your bike? It'd be interesting to see what it's like. The first time really riding a road bike. So this is probably maybe 17 years ago or so. And it was just so fast. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I bought it off him for 25 quid.
Nice.
His name's Dave Erasmus. Shout out, Dave.
Dave.
And that was it, really. And then just, I think, through commutes and just started to meet some people. Didn't really get involved in clubs. I kind of dabbled a bit, but I found clubs quite challenging, if I'm honest. I found them, at the time, not very kind of inviting.
Yeah.
Then just through a couple of people that I sort of live close to, really got into the cycling scene. A guy called Neil, who I actually founded the business with, he kind of took me under his wing and he'd been cycling for a long time. He worked in the cycling industry. So that was kind of my entry into sort of quite high level sort of cycling, shaved legs, taking, I think that's the kind of like the metric of how serious are you is when you kind of shave your legs. And that was it. So I'd probably say about 15 years seriously. Mm-hmm. And then, 5 years after that, threw around some ideas and we got the keys to this place in Eshers and here we are.
Amazing. So did you primarily start with commuting and then jump on the bike? Did you say you were racing as well at one point?
No, I've never really raced. That's never really floated my boat. I don't think I'm competitive enough to race. It was just, I kind of grew up mountain biking around our local trails here. And then, it was much nicer to kind of commute to work on that. I'd put some like road tires on my Kinesis that I built up and then transferred over to road.
Do you still mountain bike now?
I do mountain bike now. I actually just sold my mountain bike last year, which I'm starting to regret. But all that means is I just have an opportunity to buy another one, I suppose. Truthfully, I don't know if you've spoken to other people who are sort of in the industry or in hospitality. I don't really get as much time to ride as possible. So when I was looking at my quiver of bikes, I realised there was a few collecting dust. So I was like, maybe go to a better home. So I've got my road bike and I've got my gravel bike, and that's it at the minute.
Actually, I think NJ and I are going to ask the same question, which is, I know that you sell curve bikes in your in Giro, which are beautiful. Maybe we'll link really in the show notes or flash them on screen. Are you riding a curve, or have you done, like, I think you might know in Mark O'Donoghue, have you got the one bike to rule them all, which is set of road wheels on the gravel bike, switch them out, perfect bike to go?
No, so I don't buy into that. Just because, that's kind of the bikes is probably the main part of what I do now. So I'm probably behind the cafe maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Most of it is we've partnered with Curve. They're a really great retail partner of ours, and we've done really well with them. So for us, it's a real joy just getting people on bikes. We do get asked that question a lot: is there a bike that can do it all? And I mean, of course there is. There's loads of options out there. But I do believe that you'll compromise one way or the other. And I think if a bike's really well engineered to be on the road, then why compromise it by trying to take it on gravel? The nice thing about the Curve bikes is that they're titanium, so you can take it down a gravel path should you choose to, and the frame's going to sort of hold up. But when it comes to like geometry and that type of stuff, these bikes are really engineered to serve a purpose. So, yeah, I have a road bike and I have a gravel bike, and the gravel bike's a beast. The gravel bike's like an absolute monster. Quite happy. We did this ride around. So I've got police out the door. We joined Curve last year in South Africa, and there were some of these roads that it absolutely should have been on a mountain bike, but this bike just ate it up. It was amazing. Absolute joy of a bike.
I've got a theory about gravel, and
tell me.
Did it on it. I've got a theory that gravel in the UK isn't gravel. Gravel in the UK is mountain biking on road bikes, because it's not the gravel of Norway, Sierra Nevada, or Giro or Girona. Sorry, the gravel in the UK is, hey, let's nip on the train down to Woking. Let's ride out to the Surrey Hills, and let's do mountain bike trails on our road bikes. And we've now just invented a genre, and I've said that before, and I'm willing to die on that hill.
Okay. I tell you, the one thing that I'm definitely feeling at the minute is it's very, very, very challenging to call it gravel with the amount of mud that we are going through and the amount of mud that we're picking up. It really, really, really is a fine balance calling it gravel riding, because it's just not. It's like you're carrying around like 5 kilos of mud around your bottom bracket. Just, can't wait to get back on there with the hose.
So, do you find there's much difference between gravel and mountain biking?
I mean, I do. I mean, I think there's quite a lot. When I think about gravel, I think, and it's the way that I kind of look at riding, to be honest. I don't really look at it from like a racing perspective or chasing sort of segments, but it's really the adventure. And also a big part of riding is people who you're doing it with. And I think that's been the nice thing about gravel. It's opened up a new, Britain's got such a beautiful heritage of bridle ways across the country, and it's actually kind of accessing those and just getting from one part of the country to another which you wouldn't have been able to do on a road bike, and doing it on a gravel bike. And maybe you're, got the bike loaded up with, all sorts of paraphernalia and ready for an adventure. I think that's kind of when I think about gravel riding, that's certainly where I see it.
Yeah, I was reading, I don't know if I was reading or I was listening to podcasts, and they were saying that the thing that gravel does is it does slightly open up road cycling to people that don't want to cycle on the road with cars.
Yeah.
If you came into it during COVID, the barrier to entry was not that high, because I know it was Gareth that was saying it. The barrier to entry is not that high because there wasn't that many cars on the road. But if you go and do gravel, you can still have that environment or have that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we do this ride. Well, it's like we do this series in every spring, like late spring, early summer, called the Development Series. It's basically a 3 or 4, Saturdays where we get a bunch of our kind of like regular riders and we take a bunch of relative beginners to cycling, or they might be experienced cyclists, just not used to riding in groups, not used to riding on the road. And we just kind of try and break down that barrier. But the reality is actually cycling on the road can be really intimidating. And, especially in the last few years, we've heard too often stories of people getting, knocked off or kind of getting into, some situations. And gravel, whilst it doesn't remove the, possibility of crashing, we've got a few people who've done a pretty good job of crashing on gravel regularly. But I won't mention any names. But I do believe that it does kind of take away some of that stress, and so it does really make accessing, the roads or accessing the gravel trails a lot easier. And then also with the advent of e-bikes, I think e-bikes for a lot of people is a really great way of getting out and exploring. So yeah, we should definitely be championing that.
How was so when I'm in the process of getting a new bike as we speak, but one of the things that
I didn't actually see your email. I didn't see your email come through.
So I don't know if this is working. One of the things that NJ and I actually spoke about at Rouleur with another titanium cycling brand was that you can go away and spend 12.5 grand on an S-Works that came out of an open source mold in the Far East, or you go titanium and get a bespoke bike, and you may even be coming under that same price point for something that's truly kind of made for you, or is more dialed in better. How are you finding it selling titanium bikes to people? Is it more of a specific customer that's coming in and is a bit more informed? Or what does that kind of look like?
I think it's a really good point. I mean, I definitely think there is a lot of the customers that we're getting have done their research, and maybe some of them have been riding for quite a long time. We have a demo fleet here of bikes, of both gravel and road bikes, because for us, we really want to get people on them to break down any misinformation or myths around what riding titanium is like. I mean, I've been riding titanium now for 7 years, and I can honestly say I won't go back. I don't have a problem with carbon. I think carbon bikes absolutely have their place. And to your point around the spending 12 grand on a S-Works, I mean, for people who are like racing, I can definitely see and understand the merit of it for sure. But I think for the majority of people, and of course I'm biased in saying this because I try and make a living out of selling these things.
Sure.
But I really truly believe it, and I'm quite passionate about it. For the majority of people, once they get on a bike that fits them well, and once they get on a bike that gives them a really comfortable yet kind of performance orientated ride, I don't think you'll go back. And I really, for both road and gravel, I think metal is absolutely the way forward. I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo carbon because, the majority of people that come through the cafe are on carbon bikes and they're having a great time. But I do believe if the majority of people who bought a carbon bike actually went out and rode a titanium bike, I'd probably say 90% would come back and say, yes, please, take my money.
Cool. With that in mind, maybe we head to section 2 and learn about the origins of Giro. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. So, Jordan, how did you start the Giro Cafe?
So obviously, as I mentioned before, been keen cyclist, kind of really started to get to know the Surrey Hills, well, and it was definitely becoming busier and busier, and we could see it, as so we opened in 2013, and everyone seems to think the cycling boom happened after the Olympics. And whilst that definitely did have a big impact, if you remember, the year before, so in 2000, I think it was 2010, Mark Cavendish won the British Sports Personality of the Year, which was a really big thing for a cyclist at that standpoint, at that time, that point in time. And the year before, so where the cafe's based is in Nice, and this was used for the Olympic route, both the time trial and the road race. But in 2011, they had a test event, and it's called the Surrey Classic. Yeah, and it I think it was in countries. It might be in teams. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was like an Olympic test, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And Mark Cavendish he'd just won the green jersey at the Tour de France, so he came through Esher, and you could see his green helmet. But the whole Esher was at a standstill. Everybody was out there watching it. It was really exciting. Obviously, we were in the lead up to the Olympics. Yeah. Obviously, 2012 we saw a really big boom. With the success of the Olympics, of course, Brad Wiggins winning the Tour de France. But then you saw, a lot of the guys that I'd known for a number of years, that Sigma Sport was becoming a very, very big shop, and it was growing and growing and growing, and there was a lot of momentum around cycling at the time. But one of the things that we realized is we would often meet up here on like crossroads, and there was Carluccio's was in each, and that was where we would go.
Yeah.
But the crossroads in each was a great place to meet, because it's you've got, if you're going out to the Surrey Hills or to Box Hill, no matter which area you're coming from, you basically actually come through Esher, or it's easy to come through Esher. So it doesn't matter where you live, kind of Esher's a bit of a crossroads. So I had an idea, which was it would be great if there was like a coffee shop that was open up early, but was really specifically for cyclists. And we didn't really think too much more beyond that. It was, essentially a place that was open up 7 a.m, and riders could park their bikes, feel comfortable in Lycra. And funny enough, prior to, so opposite where we are now is a Costa Coffee.
Yes.
And that was actually one of the first Costa Coffees in the country.
Oh, wow.
And I would say it's probably been there for, unfortunately it's not there anymore. It closed last year because of rent increases, but I reckon it's probably there for 25 years. And I remember going there with friends, and I remember there was one day where, and this was before I was, kind of into road cycling, and sat there and a group of cyclists came in, and they're wearing, but at that time, when we're talking about kit, it wasn't stylish back then.
Oh, no.
It was European, it was European, covered in logos. Yeah. And, these guys walked in and they've got their silly shoes on, they've got shaved legs. And me and a couple of friends, we didn't laugh at them, but we definitely, it was striking to see these people walking in, and it was just like, oh, they look really out of place. Fast forward 25 years or 15 years, and I'm opening up a cafe opposite that Costa that is specifically for people with silly shoes and Lycra. Who would have thought it? But yeah, so we ran it past Neil, who was my sort of founding business partner. He's been involved in cycling from a retail perspective for a long time. He managed a couple of brands, and I ran the idea past him. We were out on a ride, and a couple of days later, he phoned me up and he goes, "I think it's a really good idea. Let's kind of see where it goes." So we put together, I want to say we put together a business plan. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. But we really, really believed in the potential of this thing. And we believed, that it did have sort of merit. And he and I weren't 100% aligned on whether it be more of a bike shop or more of a coffee shop. I was really clear it has to be more of a coffee shop, because we want locals to come in. We want locals to, non-cyclists to become a part of it. And it'd be high-end coffee, nice fresh food. And then he went on one of his work trips. He was up in Edinburgh and visited Rhondda. Rhondda was, so let's see, when we were open, there was, I might be wrong, but I think there was maybe only 2 or 3 other cycle cafes that we knew of. Okay. One was Look Mum No Hands, and we knew those guys from the Sigma days. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore, which is an absolute tragedy, because they were, in my opinion, they were the kings, they were the godfathers. And another one was Rhondda up in Edinburgh. And Rhondda was this in a really cool part of Edinburgh, and it was like 2 units next to each other. And the cafe side used to be like a butcher shop, and it had all the original tiles on the back. And it was just this really cool vibe. But they used to host rides, but there was like 1/2 cafe and 1/2 bike shop. So it was 2 very clear businesses. Yeah. So Neil phones me up and he's like, "I'm in this place in Edinburgh. I get it. The coffee shop. I totally get it. And then that was kind of like the momentum of like, well, let's do it. And so the next question was where, but we knew it had to be Esher. It's just that gut feeling. But this was long before Strava had released heat maps. Strava was around, but it wasn't as, obviously it's nowhere near as as big as now.
Were people still using Map My Ride, the Under Armour app? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Never worked.
Well, the nice thing about Strava is you could use it on your phone, and it worked well. So if people didn't have like a cycle computer, or didn't have, because back then you had like SRMs, which are power meters, but they didn't really have GPS. So it was now obviously the bike computers are incredible, but back then they were very, very primitive. Or you'd have like the cat eye heart rate monitors. It wasn't really the GPS thing.
The little magnet on your spoke.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the cycling was so crap, wasn't it?
Oh man, I mean, the heart rate monitors were like, whoa, this is incredible! Like the amount of training you can do. And then Neil actually had this SRM. He was one of the first guys to get it,
Wow.
and he had this software called something Leopard, and it was just pure data, and then obviously completely different to what it is now. So we would park up on a Saturday and a Sunday, and I've still got this like clicker. You know this clicker that like barmen have, or like car security have, doormen have.
Yeah.
And we would just spend an hour and just count cyclists. And on a Sunday morning when it was busy, it was like in the hundreds, like in an hour. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. And it just, for us, it just confirmed like we need to be in Esher. There was a couple of other places that we'd loosely looked at, but it needs to be in Esher. So that was 2012 or the end of 2012. And we were just waiting for the right location. And this place was available, but it was under offer. After about 4 months, the agent phoned us up and said, the offer's fallen through. Do you guys want it? And we said yes. And it was a men's clothes shop. So it was not a cafe.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, let's do it. And again, we get the keys. We got the keys in July of 2013.
Like that. There you go.
Off
you go.
And it was like, oh shit. Like, we've got to do this. And so we put some designs together. We've got some friends who are in the trades, like a carpenter, a brilliant carpenter who kind of got involved from day one, and then a plumber. And he was just like, where are your water mains? And where's the waste? And we were like,
oh, because it used to be a men's clothes shop.
We were like, no. We hadn't thought about it. It was like, don't know. And so we kind of, I mean, the wall sort of behind the bar is a wall that we basically had to put in to hide all the
pipes,
the water facility of pipes. And I mean, look, we just figured it out. It was great. Those days were brilliant. Like it was exciting. It was terrifying. And then we decided on a date, and then it was like a month away. And so we put like posters up on the windows, because of our friends at Sigma and Look Mum No Hands, like, word got out pretty quickly what we were doing. We've been pretty, it was old school. So it was pretty like religious, handing out flyers.
Yeah.
Of course.
And we were doing all the work ourselves. And I remember we had a conversation with Ian, who's the sort of founder of Sigma. And he goes, I remember when we opened our new shop, like minutes before we opened, I was still vacuuming. And I remember thinking, we're going to be so much more organized.
Never.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was so, people were outside waiting to come in. And my cousin was putting up bits of floor upstairs, as in it was so crazy and chaotic. But we did it, and we had this brilliant opening party, October 17th, 2013. And the place was packed. There's some, on our website, there's some photos from that night. The place was absolutely packed. We had lots of Prosecco, and then 7 o'clock the next day, we were open.
Amazing.
And it was terrifying.
Did
you? We were like, oh, now we've got to wait for customers to come in, and so and that's kind of it, really. That was how it started. Yeah.
What were you? What was, I guess, your career before you became, like, I guess, in the hospitality sort of cafe?
Well, so my first ever job when I was 14 was ironically in a cafe.
Full circle, mate.
I know, it's so horrible, that thought that it's full circle. You kind of always envisage, you kind of go on and on, but it's absolutely, it's really, it's quite tragic, actually. No, I'm kidding. But so I studied music at university, music performance, and realized pretty quickly I didn't really want to go down music as a career. I just didn't really have the drive for it. And I love music to a point where it was the more that I started working in it, it just wasn't for me. And so I ended up getting a job doing video production, and it was like video production and animation. And so that was basically where I spent the next 5 years, and then started using that, and I was actually doing some youth work for a few years. But that was a really, really good time. But I just knew when I threw the idea past Neil, I was like, we've got to do this. And I think that's that. We've just been figuring out ever since, really. 10 years later,
basically learning on the job.
Yeah.
So congrats on 10 years, by the way.
Thanks.
I mean, I was kind of watching afar, and I think I was flicking you DMs. But what's it been like in the past 10 years? I know you said at the start, not only has it got to be a cafe for cyclists, when it gets to 9 o'clock and all the cyclists are at work or they're not cycling, it needs to have an influx of civvies, essentially. Call it what you will. What's that been like for the last 10 years? Obviously, you had 2.5 years of COVID as well. Maybe for any budding cafe potentially opener, what's it been like that 10 years since you kind of first flung the doors open?
So, I mean, we were, before we opened, we knew pretty clearly that it wasn't just the bike shop, and it wasn't just for cyclists. I certainly was still am a bit of a coffee snob. So I knew the standard that we wanted to set with coffee, and we felt, and also with regards to, we didn't want to do the pre-packaged food or pre-bought food. We wanted it to be as fresh as possible. And just for that quality and standard for people to be drawn to. We also didn't advertise, apart from the few flyers before we opened. We didn't go down the advertising route of like magazines, or we really wanted word of mouth to be king. But I think, aside from the coffee and the bikes, the bit that probably I was the most passionate about was, and it's in the 10 years that we've been open, it's the one thing that hasn't changed, and it's the one thing that has been our kind of our reason, really. It's the why behind what we do, and it's the person that walks through the door is more valuable than the money that they're going to spend with you. And we've always put the emphasis on the individual. And obviously, from a business standpoint, if we put the money on the individual, hopefully they'll continue to spend money with you regularly. But we didn't want it to be transactional. We wanted it to be relational, and that's really been, from we even to this day, that's how we train our staff. It's the number one of our core values is relational, not transactional. And I think when you do genuinely value individuals and people and community, it doesn't really matter where you've come from, if you're wearing Lycra or not, if you're on a bike or not. People will come back, and also people will tell others. And of course, even now, we're next to where we are located in Eshers. We're next to Sandown Park, which is a huge race course, but also a big conference centre. It's got many events and conferences throughout the year. And so this last weekend, it was like a arts and crafts fair.
Okay.
So we had a lot of knitted jumpers coming through the door. And even now, 10 years later, that individuals joke, you're like, are you allowed to come in here if you're not wearing Lycra? And because it, especially on a busy weekend, and there's a lot of bikes, parked up outside the front, it can feel, like, oh, is it just for Lycra? But I mean, it's not. And I'd say our split is on the weekend probably 70-80% cyclist, 20-30% non, and on the week it's probably 90% non-cyclist, 10% cyclist. We're very proud to be an independent coffee shop on the high street, competing with big chains.
So maybe we can talk about this, and then I think we're going to get onto one of the most important things as you as a cafe, which is coffee chat. But I've seen that you do a lot of the group rides as well, right? So there's I use Giro with my friend Cam, Canadian Cam, another one. Shout out Canadian Cam. We meet there because it's the midway point between where I live in Surrey and where he lives in Wandsworth. But
Perfect.
Maybe if there are people listening to this podcast that live in where I live and there's not a group to go out with, you could talk about some of the groups that Giro has, right? Yeah.
I mean, so from day one, we really didn't want to start a club.
Yeah.
And we wanted it to be as exclusive as possible. So, and that includes clubs coming here and using us as a base. I mean, we're quite close to a few clubs, like as in geographically. So it's never really kind of hit home because it's sometimes a bit just too close. But we do get a lot of clubs through. But we also, we really wanted to make our rides as accessible as possible.
Yeah.
And that's definitely been a bit of a journey, because I think pre-COVID, I was certainly starting to be aware, and if I'm really honest, a bit frustrated, because we have a really wonderful community of riders around us, but I realized it was becoming a bit of a clique, and it was becoming, becomes, just by its very nature, very difficult to sort of get into. Now, it's not impossible, but I think it does take a certain personality type to kind of, have the confidence to sort of go through. I tell one story of this guy. I won't say his name, but he used to come in on Sunday afternoons, not riding, but he started to come in every Sunday, and I started chatting with him, and he was always a little bit, shy, a little bit sort of defensive. And, he mentioned that he rides, and I said, oh, you should come and join us. He goes, yeah, I've seen you guys, sort of advertise your rides. I'm just not sure. And like most people say, I don't think I'm going to be fast enough. And so I say, well, look, you don't need to worry about that, because that's not what we do. All our rides are like a non-drop. And if people are up for going fast, and we'll just split the groups, because back then we did it really organically, where whoever just rocked up, we just sort of went out and did it. So on one Sunday morning, he plucks up the courage to come. And I'm like, Dan, great to see you. I said, look, I'm working today, but these are the guys. And I sort of pointed out there, they're just about to leave. Now, unfortunately, there's also a group of riders that come through who are ex-pros, and a couple of them were wearing Giro kit. So he got onto the wheel of them, and I got dropped by Cobham, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is about 5k down the road. I mean, literally, they just tore his legs off, because they thought he was some, whatever, just hanging on, and without sort of saying hello. And Dan thought that they were our group. So anyway, our group comes back, and I was like, where's Dan? They said, oh, he went off with the other guys. And I was like, oh, and in my mind, I was like, well, we've just lost him. I've spent all this time telling him not to worry. It's not fast. Come along. It's super chill.
And he's just done 50k an hour to Cobham. Yeah.
That still have some real legs. But then thankfully, the next week he did come. He came back, and we laughed about it. And he figured out, okay, they weren't the guys. And ended up getting really, really involved. And it kind of, the community actually ended up sort of changing or having a really big impact in his life. He was going through a very difficult time. And just being around people and forming some really good friendships got him out of what turned out to be a really dark place, which is, I mean, those are the reasons why we do what we do. It's, it's community, it's people, and that's it. I realized it was becoming quite cliquey. Obviously, COVID was a very difficult time, but what it did do is it put a stop. We had to stop doing our weekly rides. So then when we did start them, they're in the same format that we have now, in that we basically used our rides as a way for new people to come in and to meet others. And we also do a thing on Thursday night called Bikes and Beers, which is, it's all about social. So, if you're wanting a chain gang to get your legs ripped off, that's not what we do. That's just not what we're about. There's other places that do it, but for here, we've just made the decision that's not really what we do. So we do one organized road ride a month, the first Sunday of every month, and then we do a gravel the third Sunday of every month. We do 3 paces, fast, medium, and chill. We have to say chill. They didn't like us calling them slow, so we said chill. So fast, medium, and chill. And then, but we have like a big WhatsApp group with, like a couple hundred people on there. And we basically want to use those rides for new people to come along, to meet new people, and hopefully, find some friends that they can meet with regularly and go out and ride. We kind of didn't, we realized that it's not the right attitude of us to feel that we need to kind of hold everybody's hands and kind of get them introduced, but you have to let it happen organically. And Thursday nights, Bikes and Beers runs from March through to October. That's one of those things that anybody can rock up. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter how fast you are. You'll find a group to fit in with. And it just breaks down that first barrier. But it does take a first step. It does take the step to come along. But hopefully, if they come, like, have we got it right all the time? No, we haven't, but we really try hard. And hopefully if if somebody comes along, they'll meet somebody that's a little like-minded, and they can ride with a bit more regularly.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. I was going to ask you how big the community is, but it sounds like it's massive, which is good.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to measure because we don't, we have limited spaces on our sign-ups, but we know there's obviously a lot more people that frequent the place regularly. You mentioned, we have kit. We do have kit, but it's not a club kit. It's not race team kit. Anybody can buy it because they just want to be wearing it. And that's really, that's the nice thing about it is because you're wearing it, it doesn't mean that you're a part of a club. It just means you like the kit, you can rock up wearing anything really.
Nice. How did you, I guess, decide that you wanted to call the shop Giro compared to, I guess, another
that was
race
Tour or Vuelta? Yeah.
It is absolutely taken from the Giro d'Italia, not Gyro. I want to make that very clear to all listeners out there. After 10 years of having very nice, polite people call it Gyro, starts to wear a bit thin. That was Neil, who was my sort of founding business partner. He's not actually involved in the business anymore, but it was his idea. He goes, "What about calling it Giro?" And I said, "Well, let's turn the I upside down and make it an exclamation mark," and that's become our thing.
Amazing. You touched on, I guess, the pandemic and COVID. How, as a coffee shop, did you maneuver through those troubling times?
I mean, that was a really tough time. It wasn't. Once we kind of knew what was going on, but I remember that period in March. Funnily enough, I had some like photos come from my phone. Your photo apps will give you like memories.
Yeah.
And it was actually from those couple of weeks in like March. I don't know why it was shown to be in January, but I really lost a lot of weight and my face was really gaunt. And I didn't actually realize just how stressful it was, because it was just, we had to figure out what to do. Yeah. But when there was this pressure to start closing doors, it was before any help for businesses was announced. And, facing that reality of like, shit, this thing might close.
Yeah.
And that was pretty brutal. But then once we kind of figured out what was going on, we really wanted to open as soon as we could. And the really important thing to stress there is we didn't want to open to make money. Like the government, I know it was different in different countries, but the government was very, very supportive of hospitality in particular and high street. We had a really good furlough scheme that kept a lot of our, sort of staff, employed. So, we're obviously really grateful for that. But the important bit was our community. It was our local, for us, we just serve coffee. But the coffee is actually the secondary part of what we do. The primary bit is just a space. And it can be either a space to meet up with friends, or a space to meet up with, some pals to go riding, or it can be a business meeting, or it can just be a break. It can just be a break from the norm and just 15 minutes away in a place that you feel safe and comfortable, and having, like a nice cup of coffee and, some cake and we really, really wanted to be that, just to be that source for people as soon as we could. So as soon as we could, we were able to do takeaways. And I think time-wise, that was like May or June. I can't remember exactly. And then, that was Monday to Friday only. And then we started to do weekends. But, as with anything, everyone's got different opinions of what was going on at that time. And we had a lot of people congregating outside the cafe, which was like really against the rules.
Yeah.
And so we were serving everybody with a coffee and then politely telling everybody to please leave. And it was really uncomfortable. So we actually kind of pulled back our hours a bit because we didn't want to be the bad guys. Or just told people just to go around the corner. I mean, it's such a messy time back then. It was, and we were really trying to figure out what business looked like, and it was definitely tough. I mean, even coming out of it, there's still the lots from a financial standpoint and a economy standpoint that's still recovering from it. And then in the middle of it was Brexit as well, which was a real, it just for anything to do with the high street and supplies, it just became really challenging. But we've got with all of that said, as the person sort of running the business, it was challenging, but we're also really blown away by the support of not only local customers, but just the community. They were, really wanted to see us and other businesses like us succeed.
Yeah, I think having those, I guess, loyal customers and sort of advocacy kind of, I guess, cements how great a place that Duo is for, I guess, the local area and for the cycling community.
Yeah.
And you touched on the important thing just then, coffee. How did you, I guess, source your beans? Do you think about, I guess,
do I think about coffee when I wake up? Yes.
I guess, is it more than just the bean taste, or is there like other factors when you're thinking about buying beans?
Well, okay, yeah. So we now work with Workshop Coffee. Been working with them for about 6 years. Shout out Workshop.
I think they are mega coffee.
Just a phenomenal roaster, and just good people too. Like really, really good people. I mean, there are some really fantastic roasters around. For us, we were looking. We originally opened with a local roaster called Beanbury. And Guy Edward, who ran it, was such a huge support when we first opened. He really taught me how to make coffee. And that was kind of definitely, a bit of a trial by fire. And he was a huge support. But we were looking for more of a partnership and not just a supplier. And, Richard in particular, shout out Richard at Workshop, who's just one of just one of the good guys. He all round good human. We just struck up a bit of a friendship and started having a conversation. We were looking at a couple of other roasters, but it was actually just, I think, the working relationship that we were really looking forward to. Plus they roast just sensational coffee.
Amazing.
So yeah, I mean, my personal coffee of choice is I always have filter coffee or a pour over. I don't really personally get too excited about coffee with milk. So it's very rare you'll see me with like a flat white or a latte or anything. I just like good pour over coffee. That's kind of my thing there.
Well, both our guilty pleasures are oat flat whites.
Yeah. Take the oat flatties, please, mate, because we're millennials from the internet.
Is that what is your most ordered coffee?
Yeah.
Oh,
what is the coffee choice of the cyclist?
What do you think it is?
Well, in London, in London it's definitely oat flat white.
I mean, so we had our Christmas party here in December, and we had like a bit of a quiz. And one of the questions was how many coffees have we sold over the year, and what was the most popular? And so the most popular one was absolutely flat white, by quite a long way. And it is funny, like we get a lot of it. It is a stereotypical London cyclist thing, because on the weekend they come flocking down and they walk through the door, and it's an oat flat white, guarantee it. Guaranteed. And the old school rider, the riders that I kind of grew up riding with, is either an espresso or a macchiato. That's it, nothing else.
Ooh. Do you?
But yeah, we actually just got given. I shouldn't really say this. We got given some I'm not going to get into brands here, but we got given some different oat milk about a month ago. By a company that said, be great if we were in there, here's some to try. And I've never experienced anything like it. People were bringing their coffee back saying, you've changed the oat milk. We know you've changed the oat milk. And so we're trying to run this down. We now have 2 brands, and our regulars will say, I'd like this type of oat milk, please. I mean, what is going on with oat milk? Guys, let's just take a breath.
My wife is a patisserie chef. French patisserie chef. And she specializes in vegan patisserie and sells courses online how to make vegan croissants and things like that. Anyway, she can do things like there'll be like a row of oat milks in a supermarket, and she'll be like, that one actually separates if you get it above 90 degrees. That one doesn't work in coffee. You can't use that one. That one doesn't taste right. And we bought one that someone told us about. This is proper coffee chat now. But we bought one oat milk that when we first put it in the coffee, we were like, this is brilliant. And it really enhances the taste of the coffee. And, I got some coffee from Eat Sleep Cycle in Girona. We were using that, and I put it in the grinder, and I do cafetiere. And we were drinking this milk so much that after a while we realized actually we weren't drinking the coffee, we were just drinking the milk. And then every time you put it in food or cereal, everything tasted the same. So it completely ruined our taste buds, and I'm never getting it ever again.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it is amazing. I mean, when we first opened, alternative milks, it was not a thing. It was people who used to order skimmed milk now order or usually oat milk. We don't do soy. We used to do soy, but soy like curdles, and it never sits right in coffee, so we just stopped doing it. But we now use not very much skim milk at all, and it's mainly the oat milk. And I'd probably say, I'm taking a guess here, but I'd probably say maybe 40% of our coffees are people who are ordering milk coffees is going to be an alternative, and that's not going to people who don't drink dairy or don't eat dairy. It's just by choice now.
Do you? I've got a question about something else as well. So I know you've got Vedette beer at Giro as well, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, is that also part of your mix as well? Do you also decide which beer goes in? Because it's a bit of a Belgian beer, right? That you typically watch when it's like a cycling beer that you see advertising during the classics.
Belgium is in my blood. There is something.
Welcome to the podcast, Jordan.
There is something about that place. If I could, I would have 10 Belgian beers on tap, all with their own glassware. It's so Vedette was like a nice sort of it's a really good Belgian pilsner. We've only got 2 taps here, so we have that pilsner, which is always here, and then the other one we'll swap out with local pales usually. We do have Duvel in bottle, but nice. We can't really make a habit of selling like 9% triples and all that.
You can't be doing delirium tremens and then trying to clip out the speed play at the lights. That's just not going to happen, is it?
So I mean, up until COVID, it's probably 10 years on the bounce that we go out to Ghent to watch Flanders.
Nice.
Or go out to Belgium to watch Flanders, stay in Ghent, and then we did the Sportif once, but it's just an absolute mess. It's just too many people, so we always go out on the Saturday, have a really good night out in Ghent, really enjoy the beers and the food, and then Sunday we watch the race on Quaremont, and then on Monday we ride and Monday night. But yeah, Belgian beer. I mean, it's just the best, and it has to be served in the right glassware. If it's not served in the right glassware, you don't drink it.
Well, I think that is an excellent segue to the Q&A. Welcome back, everybody. Section 3 Q&A. Going to do that. We'll rattle through this with Jordan, and he can give us our spicy takes. So, Jordan, maybe start us off. What would you consider more pro, or what are you doing most? Is it Richmond or Regent's Park? What do you think?
If I was, you seen that show on Channel 4, 24 Hours in Police Custody?
Yeah.
Where they give a no comment answer.
Yeah.
I feel as though not to incriminate myself, I need to no comment. If I was in America, I'd plead the fifth. So what's more pro, Richmond or Regents? I will say it's more pro to. I can't stand either. Can't stand them. But I totally understand that for people who live near or don't have, I live in Surrey, so I can get out to the Surrey Hills very easily. So it is a treat. But for people who live in the city, I totally get the the benefit of having Richmond or Regent's very close. I mean, Regent's Park is absolutely beautiful. There's no two ways around it. But for riding a bike, and especially when it's busy, no, thank you. And and a big part of it is, and I hope people who ride in Richmond Park, people are really rude. Just if you see someone else waving, which is usually me, give them a wave back. Don't give them some like filthy look and pretend that you're all better. Like, no, come on. Like, we're all here for a good time. Bit of a smile, bit of a wave goes a long way.
I heard the story.
Oh, sorry, carry on. I interrupted you.
I heard the story that Geraint Thomas said somewhere. He's riding in Wales on a jet black Pinarello, wearing jet black kit, and he was waving to people, saying hi to them in the morning. No one waved back. And he was like, oh, okay, whatever. He said he got to a cycling cafe. He said the same people that ignored him swamped him, bought him like 30 coffees, desperate to talk to him. And he was like, you know what? Don't wave. Yeah. No interested.
I mean, I know it feels like such a petty thing, but it's actually not. It's like, it's just, if you've been riding for a long time as well, it's just what you do. Like, you see other people ride, you just acknowledge. And I find that in Richmond Park, there is that and also I'm not a very competitive person. Like, I know that by nature, so I'm not there to set times.
Yeah.
And it can bring out the competitive side in people. And I just find it a little bit rude. And, but I'm spoilt because I can get out to the Surrey Hills quickly from here. So what's more pro? I think if you live in London, if you're really pro, you go out and do the Surrey Hills and make a day of it. That's what I think.
So where are you? Where would you go? You and I live near each other. Where are you going when you're going around Surrey? What's the kind of loop that you could recommend to someone? How about that?
Yeah, easy. So, I mean, it all depends on time. We actually have a page on our website called Local Loops, where people can go and find road and gravel loops at different varying lengths that start and finish here. But I don't live too far from where you are, Cam. So, I mean, if I've got like an hour and a half, it's probably like a Staples Lane through to Pease Lake loop and back, and then come back up Coombe. Yes. Or if I've got like an hour, it will be up Sheer Road, past the Lotus Garage, up that climb, and then loop back to Ripley. So slight uphill drag, and then a challenging climb, and then loop back. But if I've got more time, it's just nice to go and get lost around the Surrey Hills, really. You can kind of traverse the downs pretty well and either have a long one or a short one.
Do you have a favourite hill in Surrey?
Oh, that's a good question. Do I have a favourite hill in Surrey? Shophouse Lane. In the summer, it's great. It's just this long climb out from sort of like Albury side of Sheer, and it basically goes up to the top of Pitch Hill. And I love that. It's really quiet. It's beautifully got these like a tunnel of trees. It's green. It's lush. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've done it or not. I'll have to.
It comes out at the top of Bar Hatch Lane, which is the real bastard.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of meet it at the top.
I think it's on my list of Barn Hatch is on my list of Surrey Hills to do, because I grew up in Farnham and like West Surrey. Okay. So I used to go, I guess, more around into like Hampshire way. So there's a well, it took me 10 minutes. It took like Rory Townsend like 5 minutes to do, but I think it's about 2 miles long, and it's like basically a hill up to the Devil's Punch Bowl, which is quite nice. Yeah. It's like a nice long climb, very like irregular, which is quite good. Yeah. But what I found was when I was cycling Surrey around that area, like around Farnham, everyone waves. The closer to Guildford you are, the less waving there is. I think there's like a dead zone of waves in Guildford.
and the closer to London as well. Like it's just give people a little wave. Yeah. I appreciate if you're doing an effort around. I mean, if even going up, don't expect waving if you're at the top of a climb or something, because you're probably trying to hang on to the bike and breathing out your ass. But it's worth giving people a wave if you can, or just a lovely nod.
Yeah. I'd say I don't know if this is just the situation that I was in, but I feel like Box Hill could be the most pro, but also not the most pro hill in Surrey, mainly because I've seen like kids with their dads on e-bikes pacing them up it. So I was like, and then you just get like lots of people just like tourists and walkers everywhere. So it's kind of like just the weirdest hill. Is it the biggest segment in like the world?
Yeah, it's the most active segment globally.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's still the case, but a couple of years ago, the road here, Portsmouth Road, was the third most cycled road in the world, which is bloody bonkers.
Mental.
Perfect for a cafe.
Still is definitely a hotspot. The thing about Box Hill is, for a climb, I think it's a really good climb. It's a decent length. It's short enough to put in like a really good effort. You just have to pick the time to go. On a weekend, on a sunny day, no, thank you. But during the week, I think it's great. Or in morning, like kind of doing hill reps. We've got a couple of people. One of our older customers, a guy called Paolo, he Everested it a few years back, and he didn't tell anybody. And then about 6 p.m. the night before, he goes, "Hey guys, I'm going to Everest Box Hill tomorrow. I'm starting at 4 a.m. If anybody wants to come and join." And what was nice is that loaded people went and kind of joined him for bits. We actually drove up there and I made some coffee for him. We got out the burners and sort of like boiled up some water and brew him a coffee, which is quite nice.
Oh, that's sick.
Nice.
Outside of your own cafe, is there any other cycling cafes that you enjoy? It'd be quite nice, I guess, from a cafe owner, why you enjoy them as well. Because for us, we're just like, we like the coffee, but for you, you probably have a deeper, I guess, understanding of what makes a coffee shop great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to sort of say. I mean, there's definitely certainly I try and as best possible to keep in contact with other cycle cafes.
Yeah.
Some are, like sort of more open than others. But I think in terms of a cycle cafe, I don't think I'll kind of name a favorite, but because I think they're all great and we're all doing a really hard job. Like it's not running. Wait for that police thing. Running any business on any high street is really hard work, and especially in the hospitality industry, it's a real challenge. And so I think it's important for customers to remember that as well, because you can walk into a busy cafe and think it's kind of all successful, but the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, we do a lot to and I say we, I'm talking about all of us as cycle cafes. We really kind of make a lot of sacrifice to be a part of somebody's ride. I think the ones that really stand out are the ones that really make you feel welcome, smile on your face. Doesn't really matter what you're wearing, it's not exclusive. And so, I mean, I think the ones that just offer like really good, like quite hearty food, I think that's it. And also, of course, coffee. Coffee's got to stand out. I can't have a cycle cafe with below average coffee.
Yeah.
or any cycle cafe that has a Belgian beer. So that's another winner for me.
Yeah, those are the metrics. I'm going to go on a slight tangent, off tangent, but I feel like, why do you think that cycling and coffee shops are a thing, whereas like no other sport is like, there's no like running cafes or there's no like tennis cafes? Why do you think it's just cycling that seems to have like these proper, I guess, cafes where it's like everything's themed cycling and dedicated?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, before obviously this kind of, the cycle cafes have become a thing. You just meet in coffee shops anyway. I think there's a number of reasons for it, but I think first and foremost, cycling as a sport, even if you're training at a high level, it's still very social. So anywhere that you can, kind of start that kind of conversation and start that, introduction to one another, or just meeting up, I think it's a really great place. I think coffee just seems to be probably the caffeine element and the bit of a kickstart is the way to go, an espresso and a bit of food before you go. And then also, I mean, we realized pretty quickly that we had like healthy options for when people came back when we first opened. People don't want healthy options. They've done the work. They want the
sugar.
They want the treat. They've worked hard for that. There's a guy called Will that we used to ride with, and on the back of his winter bike that had mud guards on, it had "I do this for the cake," and it's so true. You want your reward, So I think that's probably also where it sort of plays into the cyclist beginning around a coffee shop.
Do you have any dislikes about cycling at all? They can be anything, big or small.
Richmond Park and Regent's Park. No, I'm just kidding.
Clip that.
Do I have any dislikes? Do you know, not really. You know, I think some of the behaviour that we, you know, kind of discussed earlier with, you know, people not waving and, you know, not kind of, whilst it's a small thing, I think a lot of it comes down to people just maybe necessarily don't know. And it can be quite, I mean, if you're walking down the street and someone else walking just waves at you, it can be a little bit off-putting. So I don't really think there's too much I dislike about cycling. I think when, especially out on, I'll tell you, okay, I do have one.
Go on.
I really hate when I see cyclists go through red lights. Like, that really drives me mad. For lots of reasons. First of all, you're a road user, you're not a cyclist. It's a car. Like, the car is not a car, it's a road user, just like you're a road user. So you have to follow the same rules. But we're living in a world where there is this conversation going on between cyclists and cars and motorists. And the reality is when I see cyclists going through a red light, my immediate feeling is you're part of the problem, because you shouldn't be doing that. First and foremost, it's not safe. Those red lights are there for a reason. I don't care how much you've been riding for, you know, that's something that really irks me. But that's, you know, down to individual choices, and it's not down to cycling as a whole. But I suppose that's one thing that does upset me, as opposed to what I dislike, because I don't think it helps.
Well, maybe talking about things that might not upset you. We are a white bib short, free space here. I'm an advocate. Or maybe this podcast is an advocate. NJ's on the fence.
It's called allyship.
Define advocate.
Allyship is what I am. Because you love them, I love them.
NJ's an ally. I love that.
Where do you sit on the white bibs? You said about your, you know, maybe our mutual love of Belgian cycling. You know, it takes a lot of souplesse and finesse to pull off a pair of white bibs. Where do you sit on the white bib short chat?
So when it comes to kit, I definitely do have standards. So kit's got to be matching. So now these are the standards that I set myself. I wouldn't dream of enforcing that on anybody else. But I do judge. No, I'm kidding. You know, like if you're wearing a one brand jersey, I think the bibs should match, and ideally the socks should match as well.
Yeah, agree.
Look, if you're wearing white bibs, as long as the jersey's matching, as long as the socks are matching, hey, all for it. Like, why not? The one bit of apparel that I really kind of get funny about is when people wear world championship bands. That's like that is a badge of honor that only the world champion can wear, and you shouldn't be wearing.
I tend to agree.
But that's white bibs. Hey, why not? If you can pull it off and you've got a nice enough arse, then go for it. So Cam, when you say you're an advocate, is that all you wear, or do you wear other bibs as well?
So interesting question, because I feel like I've painted myself into a corner on this. So I own one pair of white bibs.
You paint yourself into a white corner.
Yeah, I own one pair of white bibs, and I fundamentally do think they look great. We're actually going to get Russ Downing on our podcast. Russ, who we've got a photo of him wearing national champs jersey with white bibs in a TT suit. So,
I like it. Who was? I mean, obviously, Mathieu van der Poel was wearing him when he was world champs. I think the guy before, well, not the guy,
Remco.
but the previous was.
Remco's overrated. I don't care for Remco.
Philip Gilbert, I think he's the last one I can remember wearing white bibs. Thor Hushovd.
Yeah, that is NJ and I's kind of vintage. Yeah, and so we're going to be doing. Actually, maybe we can. We'll advertise it again. Maybe this has already come out, but we're going to be doing a ride on April the 1st called PINTs and PAVÉ. So we're going to be doing all of the PAVÉ streets of London. and then we're probably going to be going for pints afterwards. So we need to decide where we're going to go for pints.
Probably Dovetail, right? Belgian beers.
Probably the Dovetail, because we can get the bike space there. At Lowlander, there's not enough space. We don't think it's right on.
Yeah.
It's like in Covent Garden, whereas like I guess Bank Holiday Monday in Farringdon is a bit different.
Yeah. So, but one of the things we've talked about is that might be shit weather, and I might have to turn up in white bib shorts.
I mean, it's bold. I mean, if you rock up. So I've also got a really sort of funny thing with kit in that once it's cold enough not to wear gloves, the gloves go away until next winter. Now that's really bitten me in the arse a couple of times because there's been a few rides where are just freezing cold. But I have the same approach to overshoes. So once that it's too cold, so even if it's pouring down with rain, I wear white shoes and white socks.
Yes.
And I don't compromise.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any sense because the white socks get ruined because they're covered in dirty water.
Crap.
So if you're bold enough to rock up to a wet, cobbly ride in white bib shorts, mate, fair play. I'm all for it. What bib shorts are they?
You wait for this.
Undisclosed.
Oh, well, was that brand Panamal released?
It's not that. Yeah,
they released some last.
It's not that quality.
It's certainly not Panama.
Okay.
Think Chinese eBay.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, the QC is not quite there yet, you know.
So the see-through factor is going to be pretty high, I presume. As in when they're on, and if you're sat behind you, there's going to be a lot that we can
I'd
see.
say they're more of like a wrestler grade from the 90s than a cycling bib short.
Yeah, I'll be on the doom line at the back. I did see a pair that Map do, but they look more.
They're fog.
They're more. Yeah, they're called fog. They're more flesh coloured than white. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah, that's a bold move. Reminds me of that Colombian cycling team that had their kit banned.
Yeah, I remember that. At the red top.
Yeah. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
As we're talking about bibs, Jordan, are you more of a, I guess, traditionalist and only wear black, or are you into the new like olive and red colours and green colours that are coming out?
Oh no! Look, I'll definitely dabble with anything. I mean, the kit that we've got at the minute is blue. The last couple of kits that we've done have been blue bibs. So yeah, I mean, I definitely. I used to, we've got a very close relationship with Attacker, so they're known for their pretty loud and vibrant kits.
Yeah.
So I definitely embrace the colour. It's only the last kind of few years that the Panamal and Universal Colours of this world have brought this pastel colour scheme in, but I love it. I'm all for it. Yeah. I think it's great, as long as it matches. That's all I ask. I don't ask for much. That's all I ask.
So did you get talking of Attacker? I can see you wearing the cap atop. Does that mean you got the full suite?
Yes,
of that collab?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm pretty close with those guys. So it's I think, I mean, as far as collabs go, I think that was one of the best collabs that's come out in a long time.
Yeah.
On the bike and off the bike, I think they really nailed it.
Yeah. What was your favorite, I guess, combo that they because they brought out a couple of different colors? Do you have like a favorite color out of all of them?
I mean, I've got a bit of a thing for olive green, so olive green was that checkered one was really nice.
Mm. Yeah, I like.
And Joe and I were talking about another cycling apparel brand that's just it will remain nameless, but the collaborations they've done are potentially not at the same caliber as the Attacker Kappa one.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely kind of got the collab things is. I mean, I love cycling apparel and sort of the fashion side of it, and the collab things definitely kicked on the last few years, and I think it waters it down if I'm really honest. But I have to say the Kappa one was a bit of a breath of fresh air. It wasn't done for the sake of it. It was really well thought through. The entire collection was great. They had, the football side of it was brilliant. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it was really good. I like the way they marketed it as well. And I think,
Yeah,
like what you say, if you do too many collabs, it kind of waters down your brand. But like Kappa have never really been in the cycling space, so it makes quite a lot of sense for them to do it. And then because they pushed the like football agenda,
yeah. It's
and
quite.
quite a lot of cyclists love football in this country, so
Yeah,
it's kind of hip nostalgia and sort of like mixed sports of like my two loves kind of thing have come together.
love it.
Talking of other two loves, to round out the show, we usually ask
Great
our
segue.
guests, do you prefer watching cobble races or high mountain races, and what would you prefer riding?
So watching cobbles all day long. Oh man, like I get so excited. Like I'm counting down the days, like
It's
because it's
what a
what
month.
it's January. Obviously,
Yeah,
we've had the Tour Down Under on the TV, but soon
Yeah.
February we start to get the Belgium going on, and then it's the classics. And it's the best time of year. I love it. I genuinely. It
Yeah.
sounds really silly, but I genuinely get a bit sad when they're over. It's like
yeah,
all we've got to look forward to is like the Giro, where I get such a buzz about it. I do like cycling cobbles. It's fucking hard. Excuse my language. I don't know if I can swear or not. It's
yeah.
very,
So you're right.
Swear all the fuck
very
you
hard.
want.
There's no easy way to cycle Belgian cobbles or North French cobbles. But I think riding, I prefer mountains. There's a freedom in the mountains. There's a,
Views.
there's and it just time as well. It just takes time, and you can just sit and enjoy it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite cobbled race?
Oh, Flanders, like Ronde van Vlaanderen, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt, love it.
Same here. I think it's same for you, Andrew.
And I think for people who don't get it, like if anybody gets the opportunity to go out there, you have to understand, like, cycling in Belgium is bigger than football.
Yeah.
So it's ingrained in the culture, and especially in that part of Belgium. So it's not like it's just a race. The whole country stops to watch this race. So it feels like a festival. It feels like the World Cup final. And it's just such a buzz. I mean, we go and watch it on the Quaremont, which is, it goes up, it's the climb, it goes up 3 times. And there's, I don't know, I'm guessing here, but it feels like 100,000 people all packing, like, and they've got screens up, they've got food, there's definitely a bit of a festival feel, but it's just so exciting to watch. Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. It's absolutely
When's
brilliant.
the last time you were there?
Yeah, so 2019, that was Bettiol, yeah. And I mean, things have been so busy, just I haven't had a chance to get out. This year, if we do go, it'll be a bit of a last minute thing. But it's great. But so for anybody listening, if you haven't been, go, because you don't pick it up on the TV. Just what an unbelievable spectacle it is.
I think we're doing Roubaix this year.
Oh, amazing!
It's the 7th of April is my daughter's birthday, so she'll be turning 2, and we've got friends that live. They've got friends that live in Lille, so we have got a place to stay. We can go there, and then we're going to see what happens afterwards. My missus was really supposed to be running a half marathon on the 6th, and I was like, it's okay. It's okay. We won't go to Flanders. We won't go to Roubaix. We can try to go to Flanders. And I asked her like last week, hey, what's the crack with this marathon on the 6th? And she's like, I haven't done any training. I'm not doing the marathon. I was like, okay, cool.
Can I go to Flanders, please? Well, I mean, I haven't done it. We had some. I mean, a few of our guys go out every year, and they go out and back in a day, and they get to see like a fair bit of the race actually. But now you guys run a podcast, you might be able to get some media passes.
Who knows? The dream will be there.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'll be. Yeah, I don't really drink beer, but I imagine I'll be heavy shoulders that weekend as Cam's deep in the Quaremont, the quack. He'll be like the
as long as he doesn't have any
elephants.
As long as he doesn't have any shellfish, he'll be fine.
Well, look, Jordan, we're not going to keep you much longer, but thank you so much for being on our podcast. Like, it's been you're a firm favourite of most of the people that NJ and I know and have had the privilege to have on our podcast. Maybe it'd be good to tell us, where can people find your great cafe? And
Well, I mean, firstly, thank you very much for having me on. It's been obviously great to spend a bit of time with you guys, and just quite fun. And I'm going to go and buy a pair of white bib shorts, I think. So where can you find us? So we're based in Esher, 2 High Street, Esher, KT109RT, or you can find us online, girocycles.com, or on Instagram at girocycles.
Great. Well, look, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
All right.